Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world and when I get this posted. For me, it's the morning of October 18th, 2022, and I am just coming on to talk a little bit, be live with some of you. I haven't done a video for a while. I've been doing a lot of typing out the cosmic updates and such, just allowing my process and my flow to come organically, because anyone that's worked with me and knows I am inconsistent, and when I try to put consistency and structure around it, I won't get it done. But anyway, I wanted to pop in here, say hello, and look a little bit at some charts, see what we have going on, remind everyone that the cosmic update the moon gathering for this week, this month, is going to be on the 23rd of October, which is this coming Sunday. And I will post all of the stuff. It's 2 p.m. Eastern time. I made a post about it on Patreon if you want to check it out. But hopefully I'm going to lead you through some ritual and breath work to work with the Scorpio solar eclipse new moon that's going to be happening next week. And I would love to see you there in the flesh, but I understand that Zoom can be a lot for people. So if you come, feel free to show up as you are, with mic, without mic, with video, without video, etc. But if you can't make the live, it will be available on a replay, which I know that the majority of people here actually prefer. So it will be available within about 48 hours, hopefully before the eclipse happens on the 25th, but no promises, because I'll have to do captions and all of that stuff. So it might take me just a little bit of time, but it will be up and available for you. And the Scorpio energy, it's already here. We're going to be feeling it and continue to feel it as we move through the rest of the month, and even into next month as well. We'll still be in Scorpio season, and also in eclipse season. So let's talk a little bit about the astrology and what we have going on. The moon has entered Leo. It went in at about midnight Eastern time this morning. So moon is in Leo. So whatever that means for you and your chart and your house, it's all going to be different depending on what house it enters and what Leo energy you have, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so let's pull up. Oh, I also made a post here just for anyone else that hasn't caught up on the Patreon stuff. I've been working on a project for a long time, many years, called the Queer Porch Podcast, and I'm hoping to start the next phase of building that and bringing it to life. So if anyone's interested in getting on, you have to be multiply queer. So whether that's neuroqueer, which is like neurodiverse in some way, neurodivergent in some way, sorry, not neurodiverse, neurodivergent in some way, and, you know, sexually queer or gender queer. But, you know, if you want to get on, it's really just going to be me shooting the shit. I'm going to potentially have like a sidebar of, you know, like astrology, like where I get people on and we go over their natal chart, or the astrology with the transits, or whatever. I don't know exactly, but if you're interested and you want to be involved in that project, let me know. You can email me, comment on anything, message me on here, whatever. Okay, sorry, let me get myself together now. Okay, so like I said, this is Eastern Daylight Time. Okay, so confession. I didn't know for the last couple of weeks if daylight saving time had happened, and instead of just looking it up, I've just been putting ET for Eastern time because I wasn't sure if it was EST or EDT, and I know that throws some people off, so I just put ET. So if that threw you off too, I apologize. But now I know daylight savings either has or hasn't happened, but it's EDT is the time zone. Okay, moving on. I'm a mess this morning. Okay, so it's Tuesday, and I don't know if anyone here works with the planets for the days of the week, but we're gonna intro that here. I've talked about it a couple times, like specifically Moon Day and Saturn Day. and Venus Day I talk about pretty consistently because those are important in my world. The moon and Saturn are both on my ascendant. Saturn has a Capricorn stellium in my chart, and Venus is my Lord of the Year. So I track those days and work with those days a lot more than others. But Tuesdays are tied to Mars. So real quick to go around it, Sunday is the sun's day. Moon day is the moon's day. Tuesday is Mars day. Wednesday is Mercury's day. Thursday is Jupiter's day. Friday is Venus's day. Saturday is Saturn's day. And if you look at them in other languages, they like correlate. It's very funny. But anyway, those are the days of the week that you can work with the traditional planets. If you choose to do so. So today is Tuesday, it's Mars. So one of the things that you can do on each day is just see what the planet's doing in the sky, or check into the planet in your own natal chart, or do a tarot reading to talk to the planet or connect with the planet, whatever your journey is and whatever's organic for you, however you do this process. Just touching into that planet or honoring the themes around that planet, right? So Mars is currently preparing its station retrograde in Gemini. Houses don't matter here. So we're just looking at the planets and the signs and the degrees here. Excuse me. Mars is at 24 degrees of Gemini. It's Mars's day today. So sometimes, people will ramp up their exercise on Mars day. Sometimes people will, Mars is tied to anything that we cut or sever. So there's a lot of people that I'm specifically have been talking to a couple people that are authors. And we've been working with Tuesday and Mars Day as Tuesday and Wednesday, because it's Mercury is also tied into this conversation, but editing of their book on Tuesday, which is Mars Day. So, anything that you can cut or sever, Tuesdays are a good day to work with Mars if you're trying to declutter or get things out of your life, or, do any kind of bonding or cord cutting rituals or cord cutting spells, all really good when we're working with Mars. Now, keep in mind that Mars is currently frustrated in the sign of Gemini. It's busy, it's quick normally in Gemini, but because it's stationing retrograde, it's slowing down and it's getting very frustrated, very irritable. We can see that in the body with rashes and irritations and, flares in the body happen when Mars gets irritated. But we can also see that in conversations, right? Gemini is about communication and connecting and networking and, data and all that stuff. And so we can see frustration happening, argumentative stuff happening online, picking up a lot over the last week or so from what I've seen. And Mars is actually going to station on the 30th of this month. But until then, it has this support. So blue lines in this chart are supportive aspects or flowing aspects, sextiles and trines. So a trine is normally when it goes from element to element, right? So we have an air sign, Gemini, where Mars is today, and it's trining this air sign Libra, and specifically Venus and the sun in Libra. So we see 24 degrees, Mars is at 24 degrees of Gemini, mutable air. Venus at 23 degrees of Libra, cardinal air. The sun at 25 degrees of Libra, cardinal air. So these two planets are able to bring support to a frustrated Mars, right? So frustrated Mars can also be wanting to get things done, or feeling like something needs to be done, or feeling like you should be going quicker or moving faster on something. And a frustrated Mars just feels frustrated that it can't get something done as quick as it wants to. This can also indicate a time of coming up on a burnout, right? Feeling really burnt out, feeling really low on energy. When Mars is getting ready to station retrograde, it's literally, normally it's going this fast, and now it starts to slow down, and eventually it's going to stop, and it's going to spin, and then it's going to go back really slowly, backwards through the sign of Gemini to 8 degrees of Gemini. And that's the retrograde cycle. And that's going to happen through the rest of this year. And so starting to work with Mars and honor Mars now would be a really good time as Mars is feeling unresourced. So we can learn what's coming up and what's been coming up. So Mars moved into Gemini in August. And since the beginning of September, it's been moving through its pre-shadow phase, which means it hit 8 degrees at the beginning of September. And since then, it's been moving this part of the zodiac. And when it stations, it's going to come back through that part. So it's the pre-shadow the first time, and then the retrograde the second time, and then the post-shadow when it comes back through. And that'll happen in 2023, at the beginning of 2023. From January 2023 to March, we're going to have the post-retrograde where it moves back through that space in your chart the third time. So noticing what Mars themes are coming up for you and have been coming up for you since August when it moved into Gemini, and then specifically the beginning of September when it went into shadow. And I'll get those dates and I'll stick them into the description of the exact Mars, like when it went in and all that stuff. I'm not going to pull it out right now because I don't have it sitting right here, but I'll get those for you to look back. But the first pass through is the noticing part, because then when it starts to get frustrated, those same themes are going to come forward again, and then they're going to come up a third time in the post shadow. So we're noticing, then we're learning, right? And then we're kind of flexing what we've learned, right? In that third pass through, that last pass through, we get to go with more awareness. But it can be very frustrating. And so it's going to be important to cut out things. So Mars cuts out things that aren't good for its energy resource, are not giving anything back. There's no, balance in the energy exchange of something. Now's a really good time to cut that shit out, because as Mars continues to station through the end of this month, it's going to get more and more frustrated and heavier. And so our energy is going to be less. And so it's important that we route our energy to things that are important and aligned for us, and kind of let go of some of those other things. So Mars days are really good to kind of get a bead or check and get an idea of what is some of the stuff that we can cut out or release for now, right? And what is worth fighting for, right? Because Mars is the fighter and the lover, tied to our passions, tied to our primal instincts to love and our primal instincts to fight for what we love. And so this is also a really good time to get very clear about what that is that you're willing to fight for as the following months come. Right. Again, over this week, we have these trines to Venus and the sun over here in Libra, really helping out. So yesterday was the exact trine to Saturn, was the exact trine to the sun. The sun was at 24 degrees and hit that exact trine. And then this evening on the 18th is the exact trine between Venus. Venus and Mars are the cosmic lovers. And so this can be helpful for your relationships. This can also be helpful for any of your passionate, creative kind of endeavors that you're looking to birth out into the world. Mars and Venus together is that, like, they can create anything. There's very much, a story between these two. And so that can definitely indicate, especially because Venus is at home in Libra, that can indicate relationships. This can also have to do with finances. Venus is tied to finance. This can also have to do with justice, right? When we talk about Venus at home in Libra and the sun in Libra, it's about justice and harmony, peace and balance. So a lot of different things that can come up. Again, it's going to be based on where in your chart Gemini is, right? Because that's where Mars is recalibrating, like a heavy recalibration in your Gemini house. And then what house is Libra for you? So for instance, I'll give you a personal, like, astrology in the wild of my own chart. So I didn't plan to do this, but it seems to be helpful when people can see how sometimes it plays out. So I'm not going to get into all of the weeds of this stuff, but I'll get into a little bit of it. So what we were looking at before, so here's the Libra stuff that's happening. And, Mercury's here in Libra too, and it's going to hit the same trine to Saturn. Is going to happen I mean, Mars, but Saturn too. So Saturn's also down here. So they're forming this grand air trine between Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius. And so first, these planets hit this trine to Saturn, and because it's first at 18 degrees, and then they hit the trine to Mars, and it was the sun. Now we're having Venus just hit the trine to Saturn on the 14th, and then on the 18th, Venus hit the trine, is hitting the trine to Mars, and then Mercury's going to come through, and it's going to hit its trine to Saturn on the 22nd, and then it's going to hit its trine to Mars on the 26th. And so when we think about this, we have a planet that's coming into a conversation with Saturn, which is the authority, it's the boundaries, it's the rules. So we're getting kind of like, okay, we go to the boss and we get our rules, we get our directions. Saturn tells us what needs to be done, where our responsibility lies. It sets the expectation. And then the trine to Mars is like, okay, go do it. Show me that you've listened. Show me that you've learned. Right. So Mars then activates whatever that strategy was from Saturn, playing out in a ton of different ways. You'll see it in the collective playing out. You'll also see it in our personal lives and in our interpersonal connections. But my point of showing you this is to show you how it showed up for me yesterday. So yesterday was the Sun Mars trine at 24 degrees, and Venus is right there. Venus is super important for me right now because Venus is my Lord of the year. Venus also rules my 10th house, which is the house of career, or how you're seen in the world, social status, etc. Venus is about beauty. Venus is about finances. And Venus, okay, so that all being said, let's talk a little bit about my chart. So the air signs in my houses hit what's called the resource houses. The second house is often like our assets, our material assets, our self-worth, our values, our valuables, all of that stuff. The sixth house is our day-to-day tasks. It's also how we make money on a day-to-day basis in the sixth house. The 10th house is often seen as our career. My MC is in the 11th house, so there's a little bit of nuance to this, but generally the 10th house is where we can see a lot of themes around the career or how you're seen in the world. It's the highest point in the chart where the MC is. So 10th house, 11th house for me is where that falls. But so yesterday, so back to astrology in the wild. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to barter for a haircut. Haircuts ruled by Mars for the cutting and beauty, Venus, right? But also tied to the sun as a way of like, that's part of my self-care regimen, is taking care of my physical body, because for me, in my experience, it's one of the things that I really struggle to do is put money and resource into my physical self, my physical body, which goes back to a lot of trauma and shadow work that I do on my own. But so anyway, for me, that experience of getting a haircut is also tied to the sun. So the sun, Venus, and Mars specifically having that conversation for me. And that's happening in my resources house, right? So I bartered my work, so 10th house and 6th house. Instead of making money, second house, I bartered my resources. So then my work becomes second house of a resource that I hold, my gift to be able to provide. The 10th house, I was recognized for being able to provide a service. And in return, I got a beauty service, a healthcare service, and a cutting, right? So all of this stuff to me, I'm having difficulty putting it into words, how it all correlates. So I don't know. I don't know if that made sense. Like I said, I didn't plan to really talk about it, so I didn't think about how it was going to sound in human language. But to me, it was very Mars trine, like it was very supportive. So the air trine, I'm learning how to strategize my business. And Venus and the sun and Mercury moving through my 10th house was really a time where I wanted to kind of reestablish, I've done a lot of work on my website and how it looks. So like the aesthetics and the visual stuff, which is very much Libra, very much Venus, moving through my 10th house, which is how people see me and my career. Mars is cutting things out of my daily life to be able to help me show up. And for me, cutting off. So another piece of the hair cutting for me that makes it self-care is it's part of my spiritual process. I don't get my hair cut until I feel like I'm at the place where I really want to do a release of some shedding of some old things. So pre-Scorpio eclipse to me was a really good time to kind of initiate that releasing phase. And now I'm going to continue to release. So that's all tied into this astrologically as well. But I was specifically just thinking about, how in my resources houses in my chart, because that's where the air houses fall. But for somebody else, they might fall, in the 1st, the 5th, and, the 9th house. So it might be a different story. But for me, this trine came out in a way of supportively moving me through my resources. So instead of getting cash money and, whatever with it, I was able to barter, which is something that's really important for me for my process and something that I really want to initiate and utilize as much as I can. So I felt like having that support was very tied to this conversation happening in my resource houses. I don't know if that made any sense. I hope it did, but I'm going to stop trying to keep going over it because is beating a dead horse bad? I don't know where the phrase comes from, but that's what I feel like I'm doing right now. I mean, I know it's bad to beat a dead horse. I meant the phrase. Is the phrase bad? Oh my gosh. Thank you all for hanging with me today. This is me in the wild. Oh Lord. Okay, let me get out of here. So we're back. I don't know if this is helpful. It's Mars Day. Mars is frustrated. Mars and Gemini. See, I'm laughing here. But 2 years ago, I would have been so frustrated that I got onto here and then I totally lost my train of thought. I completely didn't do what I wanted. This is Mars and Gemini because regularly, pre me doing all my work and being aware of astrology and all of this stuff, and still sometimes today, like in this moment, but not in this moment, I would be very frustrated that I can't stay, but that's what Mars and Gemini is doing. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of stuff happening and it's like hard to figure out and stay grounded and stay in line and stay focused, and that can be very frustrating. I'm a Capricorn rising. I like to be structured and stable and consistent. And the fact of the matter is I'm not. A large part of me yearns for that and is that way a lot of times, but a lot of me is not, the ADH in me is not. ADHD in me is not. So anyway, I could, and in times would be very, very frustrated with what's happening right now, but I'm going to laugh it off. I'm going to hope that you laughed it off with me. Let me know how you're doing. I hope to see you on Sunday to chat about stuff. The Venus Sun cazimi is coming up. Oh yeah, we can look at that real quick. So a cazimi is any time that, okay, let me not talk while I'm trying to do this. Because what we've learned is that it doesn't work for me right now. Okay, so on the 22nd, we have, oh no, at 29 degrees, let me get it to it. Okay, that's close enough. So at 29 degrees of Libra, we have the Sun and Venus in a conjunction or a cazimi. So anytime a planet conjoins the sun, it's called the cazimi because it's known as being in the heart of the sun. So it's like a beeline shot through the sun, through the purpose. So it is known to bring a moment of clarity for that planet. It's also starting a new cycle or starting a new phase of that cycle when the sun hits in contact with the planet. It's starting a new cycle. So the Venus Sun cazimi can bring us clarity or provide us some kind of support or nourishment around our Venus things: finances, relationships, justice, connection, relatability, those kinds of things, aesthetics, beauty, art. And so in that moment, it's a really good time. Like for me, I'm going to set time aside to meditate in some way. I'm not sure if I'm going to scry or, do some kind of divinatory magic or just be with the energy, journal. I'm not sure. It's going to be whatever feels organic, whatever it feels available. But I like to at least light a candle and breathe a little bit and just recognize the new phase of a cycle and the potential for me to receive a download or a deeper understanding into something, whatever it is that I'm searching for. And again, you can look to see what the Libra house is in your chart. This one doesn't matter. It's just the transits, but it's in the 11th house. So if you have Libra in the 11th house, which means you would have Sagittarius rising, then maybe this has something to do with your friendships or, accolades at work or large groups of people, and how you can show up and relate to them or, something like that. If this is happening in your 8th house, maybe it has to do something to do with shared resources, right? Maybe an inheritance or something, maybe some way to partner with someone in a deeper, intimate way, sharing resources in some way, 8th house stuff. So, it's going to depend on where this is hitting for you, but just generally, I wanted to note that happens on the 22nd. And then on the 23rd, we are having our moon gathering. And then on the 24th or on the 25th is the Scorpio South Node eclipse. Big releasing vibes, right? The South Node is about the past. A South Node transit can be seen as and discussed in multiple ways, but one of the ways that I like to think of it is like the toilet flusher, right? So what we're going to do on Sunday together is going to be around releasing something, right? Because as we know with eclipses, they're often tied to, and Chris Brennan likes to say, great endings and great beginnings. So in order for the great beginnings to happen, sometimes we got to flesh out the old stuff. And so that's what we're going to be working on a little bit together on Sunday. And again, that replay will be available for all tiers of Patreon. So I think that's all. I didn't have anything planned really to talk about. I wanted to talk about Mars probably more than I did, but Mars is not resourced right now as much as it would like to be. So even though the sun and Venus are there, so leaning into the sun and Venus, that playfulness that I was able to show up is very much appreciated Venus energy for me, to be able to just kind of be with this moment and appreciate anyone that made it to this point. So, okay. Thanks. I hope you have a good day or have a day, make it through. Shit's rough out here. Goodbye for now.